What are some red flags that low-level employees notice first? When the company starts changing the offered benefits for cheaper and crappier ones and tries to sell it as an upgrade, like at my work recently, it is increasing the costs in all of its health plans while pushing a new HSA really hard, selling it as a hassle-free, less expensive, and equally better plan. However, in the fine print, the company is eliminating contribution matching. An HSA is literally just a savings account for medical bills and not actually health insurance. If the company isn't matching our contributions, it's basically just paying for our medical bills out of pocket with extra steps. If they can't afford to meet the obligations they promise to employees, it's probably not long before they can't afford employees either. And gee, wouldn't you know it, 3 months later my company announced layoffs. Also, any job that tells you don't get paid for overtime but you can take time off in lieu is BS. I managed a jewelry and handbag store in Australia, and how this company still runs is beyond me. Every staff member I ever worked with quit. Firstly, we never got time off, ever. Even if we requested time in lieu, our area manager said it was too busy and we had to work. Starting at 7 a.m., the store opened at 9 a.m. and staying as late as 10 p.m. The store closed at 6 p.m. We never got paid for those extra hours. We had to work all those extra hours because the company always sent us over 50 boxes a week of stock without even selling half the stuff in there to begin with. Yet only had 2 people working a shift. FYI, the store location was in a poor suburb and the price point of products was high. During your shift, you were expected to promote sales, exceed the KPIs, serve customers, and somehow unpack 20-plus full boxes of stock alone, as your second person was only a lunch cover. Never had any space for the stock. We had a tiny store and the back room was literally the size of 2 toilet cubicles. I ended up tripping over a huge box that my manager told me to put behind the counter and I hurt my knee. I quit shortly after because they expected me to still come in and sit in a cushion and work. Screw that place. Story 2. This one just happened to my mother. A month ago, the CEO of the company flew in across the country from Cali. My mom told her coworkers that her unexpected first-time visit was a terrible sign that they needed to start looking for new jobs. She felt this way because a different branch in our state had closed a month prior. 2 weeks ago, the company told everyone that they were closing the entire branch. Then a New York-based company bought out the California-based company and told everyone that they were going to rehire the majority of the office. Everyone rejoiced, except my mom. My mom told them to keep looking for jobs and interviewing because something didn't seem right. It turns out that when the New York company said that they were going to hire the majority of the branch, what they meant was that they were going to rehire 5% of the branch and outsource everyone else's jobs. This was literally in the contract. My mom said that when people found out, they were devastated and angry. She said that so many people were mad because they had turned down other job offers because they thought they no longer needed them. She said so many were hurt that a company would treat its employees like trash. I forgot the cherry. My mom overheard the CEO of the New York company telling someone that they were able to hire in the new employees at the offered salary, the lowest, and that they could have gotten paid more but no one asked. Note to everyone out there, the company is not your family. The company doesn't care about you. There's no loyalty to you. Show no loyalty. If the company does not bend over backwards for you, do not give that company all of your energy. Do not go above and beyond for a company that views you as replaceable and therefore disposable. Never trust big companies. That's rule number 1. Story 3. My former boss and friend initially paid me $5 an hour, promising an increase to the minimum wage soon, which never materialized. My duties involved selling anime and comic merchandise for 7 hours and pricing MTG, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon cards all day. Knowing that my financial situation wouldn't improve despite my efforts, I gradually lost motivation. When I confronted her about the discrepancy in my wages despite her promise, she bluntly stated that I didn't deserve the minimum wage. I resigned a week later. I'd been battling illnesses, yet she denied me time off to see a doctor, resulting in me working 7 days a week. Eventually, I became so ill I endured this job for almost 7 months. When managers or bosses make monetary promises, it's wise not to take them at face value. Additionally, it's best to avoid working for friends, especially if they hold a position of authority over you, as it can lead to uncomfortable situations. Also, highly charismatic people tend to behave differently when they encounter someone who is vulnerable, quiet, or introverted and lacks social support. They seem to recognize the absence of potential retaliation and utilize their charisma to turn the group against that individual, engaging in various forms of torment. I wonder if it's rooted in narcissism or clinical psychopathy. In any case, it's crucial to cultivate friendships and engage socially in the workplace. Stepping out of your comfort zone, especially as an introvert, is immensely important. Additionally, familiarizing oneself with the Project Management Institute's Code of Ethics and promptly documenting any infractions can prove invaluable in the future. Story 4. If your boss micromanages everything you're doing, from picking up trash to placing the pallets in the truck to making sure the flexo is glued, and acts like he knows everything even though you've proved him wrong every time, it can be frustrating. You remain submissive because you need the job and are working with illegals, so he assumes you are too, even though you come from a semi-wealthy family. When you're fed up with the messes and are asked to clean them up even though you didn't make them, you say, "No, that's not my mess, not my job." It then brings you into a meeting room with a supervisor to intimidate you by asking the same question. You still say no. It fires you by saying, "Okay, you're good to be let go. I have a witness. It wasn't a pleasure to meet you." You don't figure things out until you're fired and have walked on it for 3 years. You go back to see the friends you made, you find out the boss was fired. The boss was married to the owner, and the owner is the wife's mom. The wife's brother, who owns half the company, came in and fired the boss for not knowing how to speak with people and mistreating them. Screw you, Alvaro. At your next job as a night auditor, the general manager walks in with a cold Starbucks. You hear secondhand how people talk behind your back. You feel useless, even though you're the guy who charges the night and does half of the sales department paperwork. You're doing more work than needed. Story 5. Will they want you to develop a new line of business from the pile of stuff in the back room? Yes, this actually happened to me. It's one thing to be in a place full of engineers and then get asked to come up with something from an existing set of materials. It's another to look at an old computer and a set of unmatched hard drives, then be told to get a working online backup service functioning from them without any budget. I was relatively new to Linux administration at that point, roughly 4 years, with only 2.5 years in the job. However, I still knew that there was no way to build any RAID scheme with actual JBOD, just a bunch of disks. Nothing had equal wear, nothing was the same age, and no two drives were the same size. This was also 2007 when the internet was still a lot slower. The firm, I wasn't even an employee but a contractor, another scam, wanted to offer online backups to existing customers. They wanted to use a tool that seemed to be rsync with MLM advertising slapped on as a motto. I couldn't even build a starter server, let alone a cluster with the equipment. I noped. It was easy, since the guy kept coming with more reasons not to pay me. I only went with a couple weeks of that before I said, "You have until Friday to pay me or that will be my last day." I think I got 2 weeks pay for the 6 weeks that I put in, but that was weeks before. It didn't pay on Friday, so I just finished my last repair and left. I was 32. It still felt like it took all the huevos I had to do it. I learned a lot from that. Story 6. When you hear about departments merging, it usually means 2 things. Layoffs, and those who survive will probably be forced into a job they no longer want. Here are 2 examples from my banking history. I worked for a bank that merged its customer service department with its sales department. Customer service was just that, a division that answered questions and resolved issues. No sales were expected. The sales department took information from the customer service department and later contacted those who could be sold an additional product, cross-selling, and made goals based on sales. The 2 departments merged and suddenly normal customer service interactions turned into a sales pitch. I understand why the bank did it. It's more effective to actively sell a product while you have a customer on the phone. However, a lot of people were either let go or quit. People who intended to do sales went to the sales department. Those who just wanted to help customers and didn't want to hit sales quotas stayed in customer service. Yes, the incentives and the incentive payouts became much more impressive, but the level of customer service went down dramatically, at least in my opinion. Another smaller bank to work for merged their secured lending and unsecured lending departments together. In the secured lending department, you have loans such as mortgages and car loans. In unsecured, you had various personal loans and open lines of credit. They were merged and plenty of people were let go. So now people who were once just doing one type of loan all day had to be an underwriter for every type of loan the bank offered. And the volume of loans per person became higher. The more tenured folks left and the less experienced employees became supervisors. In both of my examples, the employee attrition rate became much higher. Story 7. Recruitment freezes, overrun pay negotiations, stricter company car rules, and cut employee perks, along with pre-approval being needed for operationally critical overtime, not just office staff overtime, are all surefire ways of indicating that something bad is on the horizon. All of the aforementioned factors are preceded to restructures, read redundancies, that I've lived through. Another red flag for a business is when they say, safety is our number 1 priority. If they're having to tell you that, then chances are they've had a pretty poor safety record in the past, and the only thing they've done to fix it is behavioral stuff rather than addressing the root cause. Also, if safety truly were the top priority, they would cease whatever dangerous practices they're engaging in. But they don't because it's profitable, and that's the real priority. Regular unpaid overtime being the norm is another concerning issue. I've previously worked in a department where staff regularly did 2 to 3 hours of extra unpaid work each day. There was too much work for the number of people. The manager made everyone feel like it was their fault. He was too tight to hire an extra person. I also worked for a company that went bankrupt a few years ago. A significant red flag was the backlog of many items that were not being fulfilled. Think about it. A back order represents guaranteed money. When the boss made the decision to stop restocking many of the items people had ordered, that was a huge red flag that something was seriously wrong. Many of the positions held in the company might not have noticed this, but those of us who worked in the call center realized something significant was happening. You don't take hundreds of orders for items and subsequent calls wondering where the heck the item is, without wondering just what's going on. Wow, these stories remind us just how crucial it is to pay attention. If you're enjoying these insights and want to stay in the loop, hit those like and subscribe buttons so you won't miss future uploads like this one. Story 8. How horribly angry the customers are with a low-level sacrifice. I work for a reputable hotel brand, and this specific location has seen better years. Currently, the plan seems to be cutting costs at the expense of service until business picks back up. However, I have customers daily telling me they will never come back to our hotel. I can see that in 2 to 4 years, if nothing changes, this hotel will probably be shut down or sold off. But management can't. They have even spent exorbitant amounts of money on gimmicky room upgrades, while people still consistently complain about paying $350 for a room with a snaggy mattress and scuffed furniture. Additionally, all of the union departments have adopted this, it gets done when it gets done, mindset that no one seems to be addressing. As a result, overall service and my job quality are way down. I also worked at a new place that opened up. I genuinely enjoyed working there and was cool with a lot of the workers. A new manager came in who had never managed anyone before, a friend of one of the owners. Someone else got hired and obtained a food protection license. I didn't have one. The new managers gave her the majority of my shifts when we literally had one guy working 5 out of 6 days a week that were open. It wasn't that the schedule couldn't be reworked. Managers just wouldn't put some thought into it. They simply cut days from me and I was let go because there were not enough hours and work is slow. It was a shame too. I honestly thought I had made friends with the owners and whatnot. Circling back to what I said, it's all business. You don't trust anyone. Story 9. Worsening conditions prevail in the backroom. The more items that are backstocked, the fuller the backroom becomes, making it harder to keep organized. Consequently, it becomes more challenging to locate items needed for the sales floor, resulting in less product availability and fewer sales. Fewer sales translate to reduced profits, leading to fewer hours allocated for low-level employees, further exacerbating the state of the backroom. Retail logistics proved to be a vicious cycle if left unchecked. The clothing retail store where I work is currently experiencing this situation. It lags behind the market in hourly pay rates, making it nearly impossible to retain talented employees. Due to the inability to retain talent, there is a perpetual shortage of staff to unload and stock trucks adequately for the sales floor. Sales have declined by 15% compared to the last year because of the inability to sell merchandise that isn't on the sales floor, resulting in insufficient hours for necessary personnel. Under pressure to address this issue, management exhausts the limited talent pool by reallocating employees from front-end departments to assist with truck merchandising. With reduced floor coverage, the sales floor becomes disorderly, diminishing the appeal of available merchandise and hindering sales. Customers are deterred from shopping in a chaotic environment, leading to decreased foot traffic and sales volume. Eventually, even front-end hours are slashed, exacerbating the problem further. In the past year, every executive management position has turned over 2 to 3 times as they have come to terms with the helplessness of the situation. No amount of increased effort from low-level employees can remedy the fundamental issues. Demanding more from employees than what they're compensated for only accelerates turnover. This is why physical retail is in decline. Story 10. It should be a pretty immediate red flag when you're the low man on the totem pole after starting a job and realize that you're doing all the crap work that no one else wants to do. It should be even more of a red flag when 3 years later, you're still doing all of the crap work no one else wants to do. Another major red flag is when managers or supervisors enforce rules by selectively picking who they want to get in trouble with based on who they like the most or least. For example, I work at a dealership as a mechanic, and for some reason, I'm the only employee in the dealership who has to ask permission to use a work lift to work on my own vehicle or have the porters wash my car for free. I've even tried paying the porters out of pocket, off the clock to wash my car, and it still gets shut down. I'm at the point now where I think I'm a victim of workplace intimidation. I have documented times and dates for about a year now for every instance of selective enforcement of rules. I am this close to filing a grievance with HR and threatening legal action because I'm just so sick of the BS treatment I receive compared to all the other mechanics. Dude, what are you waiting for? Do it now. Story 11. My best friend worked as a facer and salesman for a small company that had only been in town for a year. He worked 40 to 50 hours a week at $16 an hour. When he received his monthly check of about $500 to $900 instead of the $2,000-ish he should have, they kept trying to tell him that it was just the taxes that were all wrong. The company shut down 5 months later, switched after their telemarketing company, and then had massive layoffs. Several of my friends' coworkers had also not been getting their full pay but were too naive and trusting to try to do anything about it. Their friend eventually got all the money back he was owed by threatening to sue since he had documented all of his shifts and his pay. Also, they would change his schedule so that at the end of his shift, they would just remove 5 hours or so when he was onto them for scamming him. Now they paid what was in his system, but they had changed it after he was done working. The point of the story is that if your boss tells you that your paycheck is wrong because you're filing your taxes incorrectly, they're scamming you, and you should get out. Also, don't trust pop-up companies. Story 12. Unpaid bills loom heavily. As the bottom of the totem pole in the financial department of a small nonprofit, I was tasked with inputting bills into the system and printing checks to mail out as directed by the higher-ups. When I first started, almost every bill was overdue. They masked this by asserting that the person I replaced had struggled to keep up with the workload, leading to the delays. I found myself spending over half of my time on the phone, negotiating with companies to prevent the shutdown of our utilities. Perhaps the previous person was indeed slow, but the backlog didn't seem that insurmountable. It was undoubtedly full-time work, but was it too much? Fortunately, a competent CEO had joined just before my tenure, single-handedly rescuing the company from collapse. I had witnessed what could have been the demise of the organization. He was astute, ensuring that bills remained unpaid until employees had received their salaries and only essential bills were settled promptly. Subsequently, he swiftly cleared substantial portions of the debts to restore our financial standing, negotiating manageable payment plans. In under a year, this man salvaged a small company with $1 million deficit. I've since transitioned to a different department, and the annual profit now hovers around $2 million. Story 13. I actually witnessed one of these with an ex-coworker. Ex-coworker, I'll use ex-co from here on out, and I work graveyards at a truck stop. One night, one of the shift leads pulled me into the office and told me their shift scores were trash whenever our ex-co worked. They didn't know why. It was also brought up that if they didn't figure it out, we would all get our bums handed to us. She didn't want me to find out because I would get in major trouble, but she wanted me to have a heads up so I knew what was coming, as I was the only one who actually got stuff done during the night. A month later, my ex-coworker and I were working. I was sweeping the store, minding my own business, when I heard my ex-co say to a customer, "This store sucks, and you need to take your business elsewhere." Huge red flag. The next night, I told the same shift lead what I had heard, and lo and behold, a customer came up and told her that he heard her say the exact same thing. Story 14. I worked for almost 10 years for a small business. As the manager, I noticed several concerning things. Cutting staff hours below the minimal contracted hours, which I pointed out to the boss. However, he became angry and upset, insisting it was not illegal. His motto was, "Everyone is disposable," which was quite disheartening to hear. Moreover, he spoke to the staff in a rude, condescending manner, never offering thanks and always criticizing. Feedback was consistently negative and lacked any constructive elements. He would also throw tantrums when things didn't go well and would threaten those who didn't meet targets. Lastly, he asked me to illegally round down my staff's holiday pay calculations to save money, a request I refused to comply with. These are just a few examples, but honestly, working for such people can break your heart and spirit, trapping you in a vicious cycle of hopelessness and self-loathing. My advice is to be smart. The only person who will truly look out for you is yourself. Did these red flags make you more aware of your own working environment? Better keep an eye out, right? Since you got this far and hopefully enjoyed the video, hop over to managers. What's the fastest way you fired the new hire? For stories from the other side of the coin. Story 1 is justified. They deserved that. See you there.